and let us all do we can to build a better future.
We here at Hardlens Media support free speech, we support independent media content creators, and we also support individuals that are actually doing the right thing and trying to build coalitions of unity and actually trying to bring about change. One of these individuals, somebody who I like to call an unofficial producer of Hardlens Media, but also somebody who has the willpower to sit through corporate media. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up to returning guest on the show, CaseStudyQB, going by the name Case. Welcome to Hardlens Media. So glad to have you back here. It's long overdue. We've been trying to talk about getting you back on the show. So, Case, great to have you back on. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like I'm at home with my family and all the people in the chat. Much love to all my people in the chat. You know, I like to jump in there, and I got great love for a lot of the people. It's too many to name, so I would go through the names, but much love, yo. We have a lot to discuss. So let's get to it.
So let's actually start with something that I've been finding interesting since I first brought up to your attention almost last year, I think, or maybe in 2020 I brought it up to your attention. And that was when I noticed incognito mode, going to your Twitter page, it was deemed, all of a sudden Twitter gave me this warning like, hey, careful, this is an offensive Twitter page. There's some things there that are controversial, adult oriented. You may not be ready to handle it emotionally or mentally or anything of that matter. I'm like, wait a minute, Case. I looked at the videos, and these are all clips from Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, CBS, ABC. And it's just really interesting that this is the environment that we're in, to which, again, YouTube is just saying, hey, this is potentially harmless. Actually, can we pull that up right there? Perfectly. So it says there, the following media includes potentially sensitive content. Now, that's something that you would see if case something is violent or adult-oriented, maybe. There we go. I mean, that's as far as I could push it, as much YouTube would allow us to say it. But I gotta say, what has been your initial reaction knowing that here you have Twitter that respects authoritative sources saying that you, an individual that's clipping those authoritative sources, saying that that is sensitive and controversial material. What is your overall reaction to this madness? And it's still ongoing.
100%. And I do have a slight update, and I'm exclusively going to talk about it here at Hardlens Media. But definitely it was disheartening because, you know, starting off the channel on Twitter specifically about, 2 years ago, the only way that I got a lot of traction or videos got a lot of views was when bigger channels would retweet and maybe they put a quote with it. And that's when certain videos would really take off. But I really got to the point, I would say a little bit before January of last year, that I got to the point where if I got 1,000 views, that was a good amount of views on a video without anybody retweeting it. So on my own, with my I have now 13,000 followers. I was able to okay, it's getting out there. I'm providing a great service for people. But then all of a sudden, boom, all of a sudden it stopped. And I'm barely getting maybe 300, 400 views on a certain video. And that's when you hit me up, Kit, and let me know what was going on. And it was definitely disheartening because I'm putting a lot of time into this channel. And there you go. Twitter is preemptively putting a disclaimer. So, all right, I have a little idea of what might have happened. I'm someone that I love to try to support initiatives that I see. I was for Force to Vote. I was for the March for Medicare for All. I saw that there was a hashtag trending of somebody that passed. I think it might have been a police shooting or something like that. So I put that in my name, CaseStudyQB / the hashtag. I can't remember exactly what it was now. And I remember, and I like to go through my notifications and look at the comments, and someone said, hey, you're trying to ride off of this person's death. How dare you? And it was like a negative comment. So I'm like, is that what he got from this? So I say, you know what, let me take it down. If that's the case, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or whatever. And that might have been a situation where he tweeted and then a whole bunch of people might have flagged my account. That's the only speculation that I could think of that might have happened. I don't know, but here's the update and exclusive news I'm going to talk to you about. So I recently joined Twitter Blue, right? Twitter Blue is a service on Twitter that you just pay like $4 a month. And the reason why I joined it was because I can now post up to 10 minutes of video. So before it would have the maximum of 2 minutes and 20 seconds. And I used to have to like put a thread of like 2 or 3 different videos within the same segment and make a thread out of it. But now I could just, usually I'd never go over the 10 minutes. I could just post 7 minutes. Like today I posted, The View had a segment about Andrew Cuomo and how he's trying to get back into politics. And I just posted that. And that was like maybe 5 to 6, 7 minutes or so. So I said, now that I'm a paying member of Twitter, do you think Twitter support will reach out and tell me what the hell happened to my account? I hope I can say that. What the heck happened to this account? So I reached out to Twitter support and I said, hey, I'm behind this Twitter, this disclaimer paywall or the wall thing. Can you let me know why or what's going on? They responded indeed, but they said, oh, these are the reasons why you would be behind this disclaimer wall. And usually you can put yourself, there's an option that you could put yourself behind it, but it was preemptively you were put into this position because of such and such. So I said, okay, but this didn't explain exactly why, like point me to the tweet, what exactly happened. So I reached out again and just crickets. So they can't literally point me. And I think as a paying member, you should let me know exactly why I'm behind this wall. So it's unfortunate that I'm in this position.
My take is just because, at least from what happened with us, I still think that my take on it, which I still think is the kind of the funniest and most ironic take, is that we know mainstream media is trash. Like, most of America knows it at this point. The only reason that social media is treating them not like that is because of the Cold War that they've been going back and forth, and social media eventually saying, no, you guys get priority. And I still, to this day, it's, and I think your channel's like the biggest representation of that to me, is it's trash. The coverage is trash, it's inaccurate, it's fake news, it's all the different things you can talk about, and you're just a regular individual. And so when you post what is trash from mainstream media, the algorithm just reads it properly and reads it for what it actually is, which is sensitive, terrible information that's inaccurate. The only reason that they don't get that is that they have their authoritative position. And so that's always been my take. Because one, you can get spammed a bunch from one post. I'm not a huge expert on Twitter, but that seems like something else would happen that wouldn't be as continuous. Well, they like throwing those things up when they see a repeated thing. And the only thing that you've repeated consistently is pointing out stuff that corporate media says.
Yeah, I hear you. I think we're definitely overdue for an internet bill of rights, right? Where you can, if you have a social media company, you can declare yourself as a utility. And if you as a company, you're going to ban somebody or put somebody in a certain part of the algorithm, then you have to notify that person, let them know why, give the reasons why, make it public, and then at least there's some transparency. Right now, there's people who are shadow banned, there's people behind disclaimers, there's people being straight up banned. Like I believe Convo Couch was recently, and there's no explanation. It's just the irony of not being able. That's like somebody putting you in jail and not even letting you know what the reasons they're putting you in jail for.
When we recently had Nick Brana from Revolutionary Blackout Network on our show, not Nick Cruz.
Nick Cruz.
Nick Cruz. Got that messed up. I am so sorry about that.
Everybody cancel Kit. It's time.
Yeah, it's time to cancel Kit. There you go. But no, when we had Nick Cruz on from Revolutionary Blackout Network, we were talking about censorship as well. What's happening to his channel and other up and coming channels as well. And let's face it, the way YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram are going after new content creators like yourselves, we got to call it out for what it is. It's bigoted and racist, what they're doing. It is at this point.
It's not just it's the targeting, but I think it's also if this is what we're saying also with cancel culture is that if you're an established channel, if you're a secular talk or a majority report. If you're over 100,000 subs, let's say, I think that's a good number to go by on YouTube. You can fight this stuff back. You might have a contact in YouTube you can reach out to and get it taken care of. You can get everyone to swarm there, which is what we've done previously on Twitter. But if you're a small channel of under 10,000 subscribers, especially, you have absolutely no recourse. I think that as much as, yes, it is definitely the racism that you're talking about, I've talked about before, it's also because those channels are newer and they've only come around more recently. And YouTube, Twitter, they don't care about small fry. They pretend to, like YouTube going, oh, we took out dislikes. Why'd you do it? To protect smaller creators, and definitely not the large corporations that are really upset that they're publicly getting ratio. Definitely not that. But it's these smaller creators that we care so much about that we have no contact with, that we'll throw forms into. They're stopping the next generation of media from taking or setting the seeds.
I think the only way that the new channels have been able to really grow, and it's definitely on their own, but thankfully there's bigger channels that are able to bring them on and say, hey, you know, this person has a channel, check them out. And I think the word of mouth and sharing is probably the best, and that's probably literally the only way that they're growing subscribership. And I think even you mentioned Secular Talk. I remember following Kyle Kalinske from years ago, and to see him grow from, you know, the 300,000 subscribers all the way up to he's been close to 1 million here and hasn't hit 1 million for years now, literally years now. And we know that from the early stages is every month, people who have channels, I didn't have a channel back then, you would know your monthly growth. But I know definitely by the year that YouTubers would have grown to a certain extent. And if Kyle, who has complained about being not being suppressed, and also who else? Jimmy Dore. They've been literally like at the same spot for maybe a year or 2 or 3 now. Is it just me, or do you guys notice that too?
No, it's all across the board. This is exactly what happened after the Cold War that happened with old media and YouTube. This is a story. It's like, this goes all the way back to when Pewdiepie was being canceled. Effectively, old media realized that they were completely outnumbered in viewership by new media. Like before this happened, like our channel Hardlands was growing like 200 or 300 subscribers a day, consistently. That was our normal growth. That's like, oh, good, we're at another 1,000 again. And then it was just. It was the thing that happened at the Capitol that we're not allowed to talk about because free speech is wonderful on YouTube, and the spigot got turned off on every channel. Now there's two. YouTube specifically says there's 2 different types of news channels. There's establishment media and conspiracy theorists, and there's no middle ground in between. So that's why all of them got stopped. Now, like I was saying, if you're a larger channel, if you're above 100,000, probably more, even 250,000 more precisely, even if you get this slowdown, you're still making enough money to keep doing what you're doing. Newer channels, especially if you're under 10,000 subscribers, you're not even close to even being able to make this a full-time thing. So it just screws that entire, like, you know, Jimmy Dore, Kyle, they're stuck in place, no question, but they're still making enough to do what they're doing full-time. And like, even like with us, like Heartland it just isn't big enough. So we're not in that place. And so we've literally had to create whole separate companies just to, because I'll tell you, on entertainment channels on YouTube, still really good. But not news. So we literally had to create, I think, what do we have at this point? 3 separate companies and channels just to make the money to keep Hardlands Media going. And that's the only reason we're at the spot that we're at. But it's YouTube has decided to stop people from growing.
What's funny is even in the health area, I've gotten into there's a particular doctor on YouTube that I've really enjoyed his clips, and it's like an alternative functional medicine that is teaching you how to eat right, and instead of like, you know, the conventional medicine of, you know, if you got cancer you might just go to chemo, but they're teaching you more of how to cut out the sugar and eat healthier type of stuff. And I'm like, wow, I'm surprised that the pharmaceutical lobby hasn't lobbied YouTube yet to like get this guy canceled, or in the YouTube version of canceled, get him out of the algorithm. And even when it goes, and the main thing is when your video clips ends, where does it go? Because that's what it used to be back in the day, that it will either continue on the same channel or it would continue on to other like independent news that are similar to that person. And when I watched his clip and it went on to another person, I happened to be in the shower listening. So I would have changed it, but I just started listening to the new person. I'm like, hey, I like this guy too. I really like this person. He's talking the same kind of health wise and in the same kind of area. And I was like, okay, they're doing this just to news. They're really just like suppressing the news area. Everywhere else, they're like letting it go,
and
including
so even
entertainment.
on that, this is like the great sickness, as we call it here, was what supercharged this, and what happened at the Capitol supercharged this. But this has all been laid out for years. Again, the Pewdiepie cancellations were really what I would call the real apex of that. Effectively, what happened, like I said before, is that they knew they were falling behind. They were losing money. Their entire thing is collapsing. They're running out of money and everything else of that nature. So what do? Especially with the PewDiePie one specifically, that he did Pew News. He still does Pew News. That would get 6 to 8 million views, which is more viewership in a day than most of these entire networks would get. In an hour that they would get in a full day. And so they're like, we're really upset at this because we should be making that money. Luckily, we're a news company. We're a series of news companies. And then the Wall Street Journal opinion section especially did this giant hit piece on them. And then YouTube buckles down on it and goes, okay, we'll move this. And this kept happening. And every time that this happened, which was literally a cancellation, every time that they would do this, and every time what happened, it would cost YouTube and creators billions of dollars before they did something and the advertising money came back. And so there was a deal that was struck. And this is, I'm sure, I know this from YouTube. It's likely everyone followed suit with all the other social media companies. But they said, if you guys stop writing op-eds about us and affecting our market share, we will give you a prized priority in. We will let you come on the channel. We will artificially take all of the suggested traffic, what you were just talking about, and we're going to have it from an even split to, I remember the day, not too long ago, like 2.5 years ago, when CNN would get about 2,000 views of video because they were being treated fairly. They were treated fairly. And so
I agree. I remember those days.
Yeah. And so what they did was they said, and when they started, we're going to take 75% of all the news-based suggested traffic, and we're going to give it to CNN, Fox, NBC, ABC, etc. And we're going to super grow your channels. And from YouTube's point of view, these are trusted sources from an advertiser's point of view, so they can actually upcharge the ad rate. So their CPM was way higher than any independent. So from YouTube's point of view, this is more stable, and they make a lot more money off the process, and they have to worry less about things. And so that 25% suggested just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller until Great Sickness and what happened at the Capitol happened, and now it's basically 100% only going to. So like we say on the show, like if you don't know Hard Lens exists, and even if you'd be a great fan of ours, there's no way you would find us unless someone told you that we exist.
Yeah, that's why we gotta give a shout out to everyone. That's why I keep saying this, I want to see a rise of more citizen journalists in this country. And now it's an uphill fight. But I do want to switch gears for a second here, too, because there's something else that I wanted to address, too. Because let's face it, I think we addressed enough about censorship and all the BS that we all have to go through. But we are in a key election year, 2022. You are leading the People's Gauntlet. You're obviously having a lot of congressional candidates on your show. You're putting them through the People's Gauntlet here and there. And let's face it, 2022 is the canary in the coal mine for how 2024 might potentially play out. And even now in this day and age, there's still this big back and forth that's happening between, I guess, independent media content creators, or here's at the larger ones like Majority Report, TYT, Secular Talk to some ways, going after even some of the smaller channels. And there's this animosity that is kind of growing there because let's just face it, there's just a differing of opinions.
Quickly,
go ahead.
We all made the wrong decision. We should have all just first acquired billions of dollars and then done this. Then we would have been okay.
Yeah, get the Katzenberg cash. But no, who wants Katzenberg? No, forget the hell is the Clinton dollars, man. My goodness, never take.
It's like, let me walk into this. Never mind. Let me back out.
No. You don't want that. You don't want that at all. No, forget that.
Yeah.
Forget the Katzenberg cash, because it's again, it's just derails everything that you've ever done, and it's a nightmare situation. So I don't know where TYT will be in the future, but you were talking to me about building a coalition, or at least trying to at least build something. So when we go into 2024, independent media is actually covering stories, building this coalition. So could you elaborate to me what that is, and kind of explain it to our viewers and subscribers too?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about People's Gauntlet a little bit and just give a quick update, and then I want to talk about something that I literally just thought about today, and it's something I've been thinking about recently, but I thought about this solidarity tour and this idea. So I'm going to come to that in a moment. But yeah, the People's Gauntlet has, it's been growing. It was an idea that first, probably like maybe 2 years ago, I remember first talking to my guys on Political Junkies about it, and then I started talking to other left media leaders and former candidates who ran, including Kit.
You talked to
I talked to Kit. I talked to Nico House. I talked to people who ran as Justice Democrats in the past. Rosa Calderon, I believe she was one of the people. And I was just trying to gauge, hey, do you guys think this is a viable thing? Because I didn't want to put all this effort into this initiative, and people thought like, this is going to be a problem, that's going to be a problem. And then I would have thought, okay, maybe this is not a good idea. But literally everybody that I spoke to about the People's Gauntlet and the idea said it was great. Let's get it going. So eventually we launched a website, and we're still growing the website. I'm getting it close to a point where any candidate can just apply, and they themselves can add their video. But as of right now, they have to let me know they want to do it, and then I kind of meet with them on Zoom, and then I edit the video. So it's been it's a slower process. So I have to really fix that, because if there's 435 positions in Congress, I can't edit all their videos, But basically, we have 4 candidates right now: Armani Oakley, Juan Paredes, Sass, Ali Dulcimer, and then very soon, Stephen Holden, running in New York, he's going to be added because all his gauntlets are finished. I added his third gauntlet out there, and then I just have to edit his last 2. And he's a great candidate that's very versed. I would say he specializes in military budgets. Like, he really knows the integrals. That's something that he does in his personal life. And he's just an excellent candidate up there in Syracuse, New York. So the People's Gauntlet is a nonpartisan initiative. So any person, any party can do the People's Gauntlet. If you're a Republican, Democrat, Movement for People's Party, Green Party, Socialist Alternative, anyone can is encouraged to let us know. Basically, the point of the People's Gauntlet, there's 5 gauntlets, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but each gauntlet has about from 6 to 10 topics that we want you as the candidate to let us know where you stand. And the point is not for me, the website, or for the left to lead the witness. I don't want to lead the witness. I just want you to tell us where you stand. I don't want to tell you how you're supposed to think about Medicare for all, reparations, police reform, all these things. I literally want to know what your opinion of these things are. And so many times you go to a candidate's website, and you go there and they encourage you to go to their website, and all you see is how you can donate and how you can volunteer. You don't see an issues page. You don't see, like, what do they think? You barely can know if they're a Democrat or a Republican or what party they are, because they just make it a bland website. So that's the point of the People's Gauntlet. We're forcing you to let us know where you stand. If you want us to give you money, if you want us to donate, if you want us to volunteer, at the very least, you can give us the courtesy of letting us know where you stand on these topics. And I'm going to ask if you have a question, and then I'm going to go to my solidarity tour.
Well, so here's putting all candidates, be they progressives running the Democratic Party. I think the audience knows my standing on the Democratic Party at this point. Putting them through a gauntlet, as they should go through one. Perhaps it should be a far more severe gauntlet, especially running the Democratic Party. That's just my opinion on it.
I'm glad you said that, because
towards gauntlets parties, same thing applies. That's quite right.
Sorry, I'm sorry about that.
But then the same thing applies towards third parties like Greens, Socialist Alternative, Independent, People's Party. However which way, all candidates, all of them, including Libertarians, Republicans, should all go
Yeah.
through a gauntlet. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, you're a candidate, and if you win office, you're a public servant and you work for us. That's how it should be. But I think I would like to hear more about your solidarity tour. Can you please just explain it to our viewers? Because I think it's important that we try and build something, a coalition.
Yeah. So just yeah, and just like you said, Kit, when I first created the Gauntlet, it was just me. So I'm hoping this grows. This is a people's, not me, us kind of initiative. So I want everybody involved, and any suggestions, anything to. So you, like you said, there should be maybe another. I was thinking of there should be a media gauntlet. You know, a gauntlet with just questions about the media, and like, for example, when you get elected, do you plan to go back on the same media companies that you've used, the same channels, right? So that could be a question. I mean, and so this is just is locked in place for now, but you know, for the next cycle, probably 2024, I'll be looking to add to the gauntlet. But okay, so to the solidarity tour, so I've seen recently there's a lot of fervor growing. Dem exit versus dem enter, kind of on those two sides, right? And I was wondering, first, let me tell you where I stand. I stand on all the above, meaning, you know, the People's Gauntlet, by that initiative, it includes all parties. You know, I didn't just say, hey, this is just for the Democratic Party. I only think they are viable. You know, forget the third parties, da da da. No, I'm saying I want third parties to be successful. I want people who are running inside the Democratic Party, I want them to be successful. And I want people who are doing mutual aid and ballot initiatives, I want them to be successful. So the question is, how do we build solidarity between these groups? Because we're finding that one side, I know like the Kyle Kalinske side, he would say that if you're running third party, if you're running in a marathon, you might as well shoot your leg and then run the marathon because it's at a disadvantage. You know, and I could hear that argument. And then on the other side, people saying, well, when you run in the Democratic Party, even if you get elected as a Democrat, you're going to eventually get corrupted by the establishment. They're going to have you bend the knee, etc. So the question is, both people, the Kyle Kalinski's thinking people, or I should say the Dem enter people and the Dem exit people, we're all allies in the sense that we want the same thing. You know what I'm saying? To probably 80 to and more, we want Medicare for all. We want UBI. We want universal child care. We want all these things that, you know, what Bernie stand for during his campaign. So my question is, why do we have to have this strife amongst each other? And can there be solidarity where we can work together? And I want to create a solidarity tour where we can create fertile ground for something like that to happen. So for example, let's say, you know, my dream is, let's say somebody says, hey, you know what? Let's have a march on Washington for Medicare for all, right? Now, if you have Dem enters and Dem exits fighting each other, when an initiative like that comes around, the whoever's side came up with it, the other side is going to be like, nah, that's whack. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to do it. It's a bad idea, da da da. But if we talk about building solidarity and coming together, and even though you might have a different strategy, that doesn't mean that we have to be enemies. Maybe when that initiative, that other thing comes around, we could say, you know what? Even if I don't agree with it, I'm not going to poo-poo it. I'm not even going to talk bad about it. I'm not going to say anything. I'd rather not say anything than to put it into the ether and maybe discourage people and start a fight. So I talked enough. Let me know what you guys think.
So hold on. I think Daniel and I both have different, want to add in our perspectives. And so first and foremost, I want to say I agree with this concept, and I want to bring up force to vote for Medicare for all. We here at Heartlands Media stood in solidarity with it. Of course, it was shot down by a lot of people, including not only politicians, but you had TYT Majority Report also add on to that fire, even though they were with it at one point. But yeah, I want to be honest. I said I was also with Cenk Uygur's forced to vote for 15, even though that failed miserably. Because okay, you're talking about forced to vote. All right, let's see how you're going to lead it. I think the one thing that I see a problem happening though, and that is ego rising. That is people like, let's face it, Majority Report and TYT have been very vocal in 2021 against forced to vote for Medicare for all, the March for Medicare for all, and also the 3-day General Strike Summit meeting that was organized by Revolutionary Blackout Network. I like this, and the thing is, I believe that there should be a united media, independent media coalition, and obviously change that needs to happen, and we have to implement that change. It's just I see the problem of ego and other larger platforms that will roadblock.
But ego exists everywhere.
Yeah,
I think
of course.
it's like water wet. So I'm someone who, back in like 16, I was Dem Enter, and then over time I kind of felt like I saw the writing on the wall, and now Dem Exit. But at the same time, I've never really truly cared to a large degree, but I think that it's. So I think to your point, I think it's dumb that necessarily everyone that's Dem Enter and Dem Exit is fighting for the exact reason you mentioned. I think that it's not productive, even though we disagree, to dehumanize and degrade each other. It's a step too far. Let's just keep disagreeing and keep each other as equals to that degree. I think that I've gotten to the point, I don't think the question matters. Because when you get someone in office, there's certain push and pull factors that are going to make them act a certain way. And the only thing I think actually matters is if we put someone in office, whether they're in the Democratic Party or a third party, do we have the ability to control them? That's the only real question I care about. If we could, at Hard Lens, get a congressional candidate in Illinois to run, and we knew, doesn't matter how we knew that they would stick with the message that they ran on, I wouldn't have an issue supporting a Democrat. That's a question of how you get that done. And the exact same thing with third parties. I think people are too stuck on terms and definitions that really don't affect the outcome. So for example, take the Gauntlet. If a politician enters into the Gauntlet, let's say we get all the major channels that we disagree with, that we agree with, all together, solidarity, and like, you're a candidate, you enter the Gauntlet, you have to be on TYT, Secular Chalk, Majority Report, Jimmy Dore, Hardlands, that. But to enter the Gauntlet, you have to sign a legal document that is binding. And it's like, are you going to come back on? You have to come back on each of these networks once a year. And if you don't do that, you have to pay them $10,000. You have to be on these topics. And when you're in office, you better follow that, or you have to pay X amount of money. Yeah. So we're not big enough to force things like mainstream media can, or, the establishment as a whole. But if we got to a point where we could actually exert actual influence on these politicians, I don't care if they're Democrat, I don't care if they're Green, Libertarian, or whatever. What matters is, are they conduits of what the people want, or are they representatives of existing establishment power just looking for a pension?
Because again, let's bring this up. The Democrat and Republican Party, they're friends with each other. But let's say hypothetically, in a hypothetical scenario, the Greens and Libertarians were also to establish themselves. But if there was no way they could be held accountable, then instead of a two-party system, we have a four-party system, but they're all friends with each other. There has to be accountability, and I think that's the biggest mistake the Justice Democrats ever did, and they had no accountability for those squad members.
AOC is not taking corporate money, but she's doing exactly what anyone who would take corporate money is doing. If we don't have the power to control the politicians the same way, every politician's pulled for a reason, just the same way in our given lives, we have to do certain things, like we have to have, a job to make income, because it costs money to exist in our country. If we can't control that specific aspect of any politician that comes on, none of the other stuff matters.
So there was a guy that went on a radio show called Tom Hartman Radio Show, and he used to go on there once a week. And I used to be a big Ron Paul fan back in 2007 for about a year, until I found Tom Hartman. And he really gave me education on the left and on progressive politics, and that's how he drew me to that side. But he had a guy named, and it was called Brunch with Bernie, once a week, that any person can call in, any regular Joe. And they used to call him the America's Senator, because he's the only senator that anybody could call into the show and just ask him any question. And if there were questions that he did not know the answer to, and what he would say is, hey, you know what? I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll have my staff look into it. I'll look into it and I'll get back to you. And Bernie Sanders was on that show once a week, and I think that was probably where he got that initial support when he first ran for office. And that's what we need from our progressive candidates. And that's why that when we do have a media gauntlet, that question is going to be very important to ask them how often. And like I said, I don't want to lead the witness, so I'm not going to say, hey, you have to do this. I want to say, hey, how often do you plan to go on independent media? And I'm talking about YouTube channels. I'm talking about people with 10,000 followers. I'm talking about people who have 100, a million followers. How often do you plan to keep your ear to the ground to the people so that we can keep you accountable? Because I know if you go on Heartland's Media, Kit Cabela and Dan LePecca is going to ask you some tough questions when you just didn't force the vote, or when you didn't, vote when you voted for Nancy Pelosi. I know they're going to ask the questions because your audience, Kit and Dan, your audience is going to keep y'all accountable and say, hey, why you didn't ask this question? So this is the future. We have to come up. I think that every time there's a failure or there's a letdown in the progressive movement. So Bernie 2016, Bernie 2020, recently we get really discouraged and want to throw out, the plan, the strategy. And my thought, I'm very optimistic that we can come together, strategize, and come up with something to move the ball forward. And I really think that, like you said, and then you kind of got the idea. If all these different, I call you all progressive media leaders, from TYT, Secular Talk, to Heartland's Media, to Revolutionary Blackout Network, everybody out there that has a following, if y'all said, hey, you want to come on my channel? Well, you got to go to peoplesgauntlet.com, and I want to see your 5 gauntlets. And then I might think about having you on the channel, because you might go through the gauntlet and see something that you don't like, and maybe you'll say, hey, what, I'm going to come on the show, I'm going to ask you about that. Or maybe you might just say, no, you're a Republican that's just a joke, like a Ted Cruz. Like, I don't think we would want to bother waste time with a Ted Cruz kind of candidate that's not going to progressive values. So that's where I'm hoping that eventually we go with this. But I want to find out how we can build solidarity amongst the channels. And I think one of the ways that we can do this, Dan and Kit, is hopefully I can come back and say, I'm going to talk to the people that have done the gauntlet so far and say, hey, will you be willing to come on with me to a show? Heartland's Media, whether I'm also reaching out behind the scenes to other channels and saying, they don't agree with Dem Enter. Can we come on there? And even though I'm all of the above, but you're a Dem Enter, because the candidates so far have been Democrats. So if you all know any third parties, Kit and Dan and people in the chat, if you know third parties, we're looking for third parties to do the People's Gauntlet. So I just don't want it to be Democrats. But it would be great if I can bring the candidates on and y'all could say why you felt the strategy to work within the Democratic Party was necessary. And you guys could ask questions. Whether I go on other channels, they can ask questions, and it could be tough questions, but this is what it's about anyway. If they can't handle questions before they're in office, how are they going to handle it when they're in office?
Exactly. Well, here's the thing. I like this idea, and hopefully we can see.
I think that if the question is the gauntlet going to be more helpful than harmful? It's definitely going to be more helpful.
Yeah, exactly.
Any conversation we can have with people running for office is positive. I just want to make sure that we are always thinking about how do we enforce. Like, one thing we talk about on the show is about building power, and that's something that's important. Again, is that we don't want to just be marketing agents. We want to be able to follow through and have some teeth. We want, like I said on the show, we want to get to a point where, if Lori Lightfoot wants to run again, we don't run after Lori Lightfoot. She's worried about not being on the show. That's where we need to be.
Yeah. And the same thing applies for all these politicians and candidates, no matter what party they're affiliated with. Because, again, it's the people that should be running democracy. It's the people that should be dictating policy, not these politicians and their corporate donors that have corrupted our democracy to its core. So I think as a final note for the story, Case,
can I say one last thing real quick?
Go ahead.
That we definitely want these candidates, especially, it's very important to ask them if they get elected, if they'll come back on, because I've seen that Bernie Sanders would do an interview like on TYT, for example, and CNN is forced to show that clip on their channel. Like if Bernie says something exclusive there, and that gives advertisement to TYT. So if let's say Amani wins, and who I think is a great candidate, and I think she will win, comes on your show and says something that CNN picks up, MSNBC picks up, Fox News picks up. Now they have to give you credit. They're going to put Heartland's Media in the corner somewhere. Now people are going to be like, oh, wow, you know, that kid guy asked a very good question. Let me go find out where that channel is so I could go follow him. And that's going to help build the left media. So we've seen in 2016 and 2020 where the left media was a lot weaker than mainstream media, and how mainstream media, they would either black out Bernie, or even when Bernie was catching fire, like after Nevada, they would ask some silly questions like, what do you think about Castro in that 60-minute interview? And they would just derail him. But if we could build the left media to the point where we would give our candidates that we like a fair chance and not try to derail them, that gives us more power over time, and we'll be ready for, hopefully, for 2024 and for the future. Go ahead.
As we should. I mean, we have to be ready. After all, 2016 and 2020, if we haven't learned our lessons from those two events altogether, we're doomed to keep on repeating them over and over again. We have to be better than that.
We have to establish the proper balance and rules for rulers. It's what it always comes down to. It's what it will always come down to is we have to continually build power in one direction as they lose it. I mean, to shout out to what you're saying, I'd love to be on CNN and have 100 people see Heartland's Media.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. You know, there we go.
That's what we want.
Or use it on Fox, you know.
Fox has actual viewership.
Yeah, or, you know, maybe have Tucker Carlson be like, oh, that Daniel Upgirl kicked your butt. They're saying some good stuff.
I'd love to live to have Tucker Carlson make a face at me. That'd be nice.
What a time that would be. But I think as a final note for this, we got something from Rockfin.
Wait, final note, then we'll do the Rockfin.
Yeah, sure. But I think it's related to our guests.
Okay, do your thing. You're in charge.
So, it's for our guest? Let's check them out.
Just pull them up. Okay, let's do it. We're doing it live.
Doing it live. Roger Meadows, tip $2. If your First Amendment exercise ain't being a pain in the ass to corporate class, then your exercise is ineffective. There you go. We also got Roger Meadows, tip $2. Hey, Dan, YouTube is not stopping the next generation from growing or being born. They are forcing them to seek out other platforms to determine. Don't think that they can't cancel themselves. Remember MySpace and soon Facebook, since Apple has created an option for iPhone users to stop having their info shared with Facebook. So one tech giant cancels another. Ad revenue lost. Ha! Now let's see how Facebook does karma.
Yeah, it's like we're in a mega monopoly situation.
True Democracy Now. If you want to control the behavior of the people you elect in office, you'll find the directions on my website. We have the power to do this because our citizens outnumber corporate donors by hundreds to one. We just have to learn how to do it. TrueDemocracyNow.org.
FaZe, can you copy that URL over to chat?
So people can go to TrueDemocracyNow.org. Also, Roger Meadows, did you say you support ballot initiatives? Yes, Brunch with Bernie every Friday with Tom Hartman from 3 to 4, radio show at 16 to 100 a.m. Late great Ed Schultz from noon to 3, then Tom Hartman 3 to 6, then Randy Rhodes at 6. Tom and Ed were the ones who introduced me to Bernie and Nina back in 2010. There you go.
Yeah,
and again,
I support ballot initiatives 100%, definitely. Yeah.
I think it's we've had a lot of talk about that, and I think that I've now been convinced that the best way, at least short term, like we're building.
Shout out to Roger Meadows, our other unofficial producer. Our other, that's right. You got another unofficial producer. You got competition.
I got competition.
But he's really made a great point continuously about ballot initiatives are like the thing that we can most do right now. It's but it's the same thing as before. It's like to pass a ballot initiative costs about $2 million. And so, like, the one thing we've been talking about is, like, if we had $200,000 every single year, we could hire a set of 4 people that could then do volunteer. You can change laws in a city. Like, Chicago is not that difficult. It's way easier than National to change stuff in. And it's the most corrupt city in the country besides D.C.
And it's very tough. I mean, something that I haven't heard people put the connections to too often was that, we heard about childcare going down. Unfortunately, it passed in I think the House of California. Then it didn't pass. It didn't come up for a vote in the Senate. But there was a ballot initiative for a single payer bill, and I think I remember even Bernie went over there to help promote, but like the pharmaceutical companies put so much money into advertising, and it went down, unfortunately. So it is definitely a fight that, whether it's through ballot initiatives, and I'm not saying not to do ballot initiatives, I'm definitely for ballot initiatives. But everything comes with strategy. Like when we do the ballot initiatives, how do we do it so that when big money comes in with their advertisement to say, vote no on bill, whatever, blah, 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 because it's going to take away your health care, right? They're going to, or health insurance. They're going to try to twist it around like how they usually do. And then people are going to say, oh no, I don't want to take away my health care, when it's taking away your health care to give you way better health care that you don't have to pay for it at the point of service. That's not what they're telling you. So I'm always that's why I love political strategy. I love talking to my fellow left leaders like you all, and saying, how can we strategize to get to the next level?
So two other things, but I just want to bring this up. So we got a super chat from Ryan76, $10, and I think this is important. And I'm glad we could even get your attention on this too, case study. We're organizing a wildcat strike in Western Pennsylvania at UPS. Can I send a Facebook link to Heartlands Media to help get the word out? The answer is yes. They cut our wages after Christmas season. We need likes and shares pretty much. I'll also offer this other alternative too, Ryan. Bring one of your heavy hitters, and I'll actually have them on our show. Sooner you reach out to me, I can have you guys on my show. I got a Monday spot open next week. So bring one of your people, one of your heavy hitters, and we'll have them on the show on Monday.
Message, Kate will see it. He'll answer it.
Send me a message as soon as you can. And if you got video footage of these strikes happening, CaseStudyQB, we'd be more than happy to clip it on his Twitter page as well. So there we go. So Ryan76, thank you so much for the super chat. If you're still watching, this video is also going to be clipped too. This interview, this comment will also be added in there too.
In the future, if people are watching live, except the people that aren't watching live, you're watching the recording.
Spread the word. So spread the word. So the answer is yes. We'll be more than happy to. So send me all the information. So Case, tell us, our viewers, subscribers, where they can find you online to promote all your links so that people can know where to support your work and where they can find you.
I'm going to say that, but I have one last question can I ask you, bother you guys real quick. I have one last topic I want to bring up, and I promise you I'll let you all know. Go. 2024, what do you all think about Marianne Williamson running and being that progressive like person to the left of Biden, primarying him in the Democratic Party? And then I want to ask you what you think about Jon Stewart 2024. And what I mean by that, I'm not going to pull a Michael Moore, because Michael Moore is the type of guy, he says like, oh, we need Tom Hanks to run to be the answer to Donald Trump. But the thing is, we have no clue what Tom Hanks' ideology is. So I'm not going to say the same thing with Jon Stewart. I would say, Jon Stewart, I want you to do the People's Gauntlet so you can go through all the topics and let us know where you stand. But I'm just curious, those two questions. What you all think? So
Marianne Williamson, I'm interested to see what part of Biden's administration she will eventually be a part of. And Jon Stewart I don't think he would never do it. He would never even want to do it.
Yeah, I don't think he would do it either. Nah, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Marianne Williamson, even though she would be promised some higher end cabinet position, then they get some middle level nothing, or she'd just be ignored entirely.
Yeah, I will say this. Okay, so let me give my thoughts on Marianne Williamson.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
What I did find interesting is that during one of the debates, she did have a change of opinion on Medicare for all, which I found interesting.
Yes.
You rarely hear a candidate say that,
but
I don't know how authentic it truly is, because a candidate could say one thing, but if they ever get into office and they implement a policy, it's something completely different. Whether or not, if she runs in the Democratic Party, to Daniel's point, what will it take for her to bow out the race? Will she get a phone call from Obama? So there we go.
She's at some point, someone's gonna go, let's make a deal, and she'll be okay with that.
Yeah.
And just man. I have, and plus, I don't think she would really galvanize anyone.
Yeah.
I think that compared to Biden, maybe she's technically interesting, but you can compare her to a piece of toast, and she would still technically be interesting.
Yeah.
She seems like someone that's easily swayed, that really doesn't quite know a lot of what she's talking about. She seems open-minded, but if you're insulated as president, you're only going to be open-minded to people that are lobbyists, just because of the physical proximity of where you're at. And it wouldn't be that different from Trump, who listened to the last person in the room.
So
and I
that's
don't
going to
think
be
and she wouldn't play her. I don't think she could even win if she tried to. I think that's the biggest.
And there's a whole system that's been really stopping any kind of left-leaning candidate Democratic Party. We saw it not only in 2016, but horribly disappointing in Bernie Sanders. You think you could have learned something from what you saw in 2016, and he didn't implement a single thing. I don't think Marianne Williamson could do the same. As
She's
for
not
John
a big
Stewart,
enough thing. She's not a big enough.
now, as for John Stewart running 2024, he can make that decision as much as he wants. Run as independent then, but I don't think he's going to do it.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah,
but John Stewart was going, if he was potentially, run as independent. Just that way you don't have to deal with the Democrats. They're already going to hate you.
I still think that there's a real argument to be made that progressives should run in the Republican Party more than the Democratic Party.
I'm open for that too. I'll be honest with you. See, I think every district is different. Like, so you might have a very, very red district that if we could sneak a progressive Republican in there, I'm for it. So I'm for open up strategy, but that's going to be part of I asked you that question because that's going to be part of my solidarity tour that I want to ask the people, like, who do they think would be good for 2024? If it is a Marianne Williamson, would we poo-poo her or would we try to, and she has to win our trust, of course. And I agree with that sentiment that Daniel had, like, if Obama comes and offers her something, would she up and leave? But then I think a quick question would be, Marianne, would you come on Harlan's Media and state your case, right? Like, would you go on?
Presidential candidates, we had Andrew.
I mean, it's like, we disagree with her. We would still have her on and be fair. We always are with guests.
Yeah,
we actually, hold on, wait, time out. We actually did. I actually reached out to Marianne Williamson's campaign, and they gave me a BS excuse. And when she was here in Chicago, she wanted WGN News of all places. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, a lot of these, if they're not.
I don't like being ignored. There, sorry. You answer my emails. You say yes or no.
The only way we've ever gotten presidential candidates to talk with us is if we go to their rally and stick a microphone in their face.
Yeah. Well, like we said with this new media gauntlet, and I've actually had the privilege of being able to present to her, and she has a slate of endorsed candidates, the People's Gauntlet, and she was receptive to that. But I think that is very important for candidates to go on to talk to the people. And even you're going on Harlan's Media, don't think of it like, oh, I'm going there and I'm going to just give them they just want a bunch of views. No, think of it like you're going there to talk to their audience, to talk to the people. That's eventually, at the end of the day, that's what it is. And they're holding you accountable. They're asking you the tough questions. And the question is, can you answer them and how can you answer them? And if you can answer them properly, that means that you are worthy to become the progressive champion for 2024 against Biden or whoever it will be. So we'll see what happens. But you can find me mainly. I'm on Twitter posting clips progressives that can use, and even if it's clips that you might think like, why did Case post this? I'm posting it there because I think, especially as like Fox News clips, I want us to be able to get the picture from the other side to kind of hear what the other side is hearing, so that when we try to build the 99%, you could have a little bit more empathy of what they're the nonsense that they're listening to. And when they say certain things, you can kind of empathize with them. And on my Twitter account, I have a link tree that I have a Patreon. I have a YouTube channel that you can check out every Monday. We're not going to be on the show this Monday's Valentine's Day, but my guys, we have Political Junkies, and I have to bring back my guys Kit and Dan back on the show also. But we have fun.
Won't be late next time.
Nah, no worries. Much love. That's the main things. Peoplesgauntlet.com. I'm hoping. I had a little a death in the family in early December, so I took a break. Yeah. Thank you so much. So the momentum was really going until that happened, and it just stopped it. But I'm revving back up. Like I said, Stephen Holden has completed, so he's going to be added to the website very soon, and I hope to be adding more candidates and then start preparing for the next cycle as we try to continue to grow and have solidarity amongst the progressive left, man. Much love to y'all.
That should be done. So, again, everyone, be sure to support Case. Again, be sure to check out his Twitter page, CaseStudyQB. He's doing phenomenal work. As always, you are welcome to be a guest on our show. And also, if you're ever in the Chicagoland area, come on by to 99 Perspective Studio. All the best.
Definitely.
Keep on doing the great work, Case.
Thank you. Thank you so much.